welcome back to the Sunday edition. Things are getting a bit heated. Let's get to that political question in Bomet, where he's back from South Africa, where he received treatment. And Jubilee launched a Elasto party for him.
Yes.
But yeah, he's facing some competition from Laboso, who's giving stiff competition to one Isaac Ruto. Yesterday, he met former Prime Minister Raila and NASA. Has been making serious claims that Jubilee should not be in office and that he will win his seat through his own party. How do you see this panning out?
Well, whatever is happening in Bomet is actually a proxy war. As they say, the situation in the Middle East, that it's not the actual people fighting, but it's a proxy war. You've got one Senator Gideon Moi and William Samoei Ruto. Because Ruto knows for a fact that he wants to become president 2022. And his only challenge from Rift Valley is going to be Governor Isaac Ruto. Not that Governor Isaac Ruto wants to become president, but if Governor Isaac Ruto succeeds next year in retaining his seat and humiliating him, and assuming that President Kenyatta wins and retains William Ruto as his deputy, then Governor Isaac Ruto is going to be really a big pain. It's going to be a pain in the wrong place. And that's why Laboso comes in. Laboso really has no idea whether or not she's running for a seat and the consequences of running for that seat. She's been told that we made you to be the Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly. Yes, sir. You're going to run for the governor's position. Yes, sir. And somebody is going to be bankrolling her. So the main players really is going to be Gideon Moi and William Samoei Ruto.
Okay, if we go just by the recent elections in Kericho, then Laboso is a front runner for this seat because this is just next to, in Bomet.
I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say that. Firstly, Laboso is just a pawn in this game. As my brother
But the Jubilee ticket.
Yes, it doesn't matter. And for this reason. Laboso is a member of parliament, and Isaac Ruto is already a governor who is defending his seat. Now, if the financial muscle, which is a very key component of any political competition, is anything to go by, then Laboso is going to be off the mark. Now, remember that this is not a by-election. It is very easy for a political party to position itself and win an election, a by-election, just because that is the center of concentration. That is how, for instance, my friend Oduol won in Siaya in the general election, because concentration of the ODM brigades couldn't be deployed in one region. They were spread out because this is a general election. But once the courts declared the position vacant and they went into a by-election, he had to lose because everybody was there. And what is going to happen in Bomet is not a by-election. This is going to be a general election. Already, Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto are facing revolt in their own backyards. And therefore, you expect them not to camp in Bomet, but also to spread around the country looking for votes for their own betterment, not for Laboso's betterment. Now, you leave Laboso with Governor Isaac Ruto in Bomet to square it out by themselves without the intervention of the two principals, she will be dead. She's definitely going to be dead meat. And just to add, this is also a culmination of what happened in Nyangores. Jubilee lost in Nyangores to Isaac Ruto's party. They don't like it. They haven't taken it lightly to this very day. And they're trying to use Laboso now to try to stabilize issues within Bomet because they see a real challenge and a real revolt. And Raila Odinga, you have mentioned, met Isaac Ruto yesterday in Bomet. I don't think it has got anything to do with Bomet politics. It is about the national politics, and it could be the precursor for NASA just before the election.
But just to note something, and this is very strange, and majority of Kenyans probably did not take notice, that when Governor Isaac Ruto had that big party to celebrate his homecoming, and actually one wonders how many homecomings has Governor Isaac Ruto had, because every time something happened, there's a homecoming. But you will notice that Honorable Raila Odinga was not invited. And upon speaking with people on the ground, they said sections of the Kipsige's community were actually uncomfortable with Raila Odinga's presence, that had he gone for that function, he would have spoiled the party. Maybe an opportunity for President Kenyatta or Musalia Mudavadi to go and harvest that vote, because definitely it is not going to Raila Odinga. And I suspect Jared may not be happy with
that. Now, the aspect that I want to contribute here is, if you look at Kericho and Bomet politics, there are people there are MPs and senators who work specifically for William Ruto. some of them are actually my friends. Laboso is one of them. Now, one of the challenges that Laboso is going to be facing is that each of these people are going to be trying to survive on their own. They will not be by her side to help her beat back the Isaac Ruto brigade. Two, this time, when the money goes out there, each of these people is going to be taking a bit of it for themselves, for their own survival. It is not going to be focused on helping Laboso. Then Laboso, one of the issues that is a problem on the ground, which I thought my brother would raise, she's, from what I gather from the grapevine, she's Mrs. Obonyo.
Yeah, from Nyakach. She's my shemage.
Yeah, she's Mrs. Obonyo. Now, according to African tradition, you know, once your daughter is married, she ameenda.
No, but how does it apply to Charity Ngilu then?
Just
No, Charity Ngilu is from McQueen.
Just-
Well, it didn't play in the parliamentary contest.
No, the politics here, the ethnic politics here is a little bit tricky.
Yeah.
Is a little bit tricky. Charity Ngilu could speak Kikamba across the board, all right? In this particular case, Laboso is a little bit disadvantaged. Now, that's the light part of it. One of the problems she's likely to be facing is, you know, Laboso is really a beneficiary of her father and her late sister's legacy.
Yeah.
She never really has had time to build her own network. And that is what has happened to a lot of people. I happen to know the family at personal level. She really was never there. She was brought on board by the accident, by the demise of her sister. And from what I am hearing, she's struggling to build a local network to help her ascend to the position. What I think is that the situation is still quite fluid and is work in progress. But she's clearly got a job. Now, if you come to Governor Ruto is basically a bully. You know, he's a political bully. And he'll do anything.
He bullied Raila Odinga.
Yeah, he's a bully. I mean, he's a bully. He's a very accomplished bully. Now, that if you put that bully together with a few local bullies, you know, that could be actually the difficult part for Laboso to handle in the absence of the other parliamentarians and senators who have been mobilizing support for her. So that's really my assessment.
The question, you know, that is, are we just dismissing William Ruto and his organizational capability and his skills and just how hard he wants Isaac Ruto to go down?
I think maybe if I take the good run to respond to that, I think what I see, for example, in Bomet, and I would like to digress a little bit in Meru, and maybe in Machakos. I think that the problem, the original sin in all this scenario, when we got devolved, what happened in most counties, the traditional power holders in those districts, which became counties, sat down and shared posts that you become governor, so as you're running Kadaleka. Now, little did these fellows, the Godfather, know that once you become a governor, these fellows build their own power base. In fact, right now, what has happened in this country, counties have become a locus of power. And once somebody becomes a governor, he becomes so powerful. And this is why, for example, I see many senators wanting to be governors. So we must take into account the new power locus which has occurred in our constitution and on the ground, that being a governor right now is a very, very important political post. Now, what about the voters? The voters now want to own their governors. So don't look at Ruto, don't look at, in terms of Bomet, don't look at Ruto, don't look at Laboso. Even Meru, don't look at Kiraitu, don't look at Munya. The issue is, what do the voters want? What do the voters think? The voters would like, finally, whoever gets the governor is the person that they have chosen. Because this guy is going to determine how you allocate resources. Well, I did campaign to be governor of Kisumu, and I remember many meetings I went to, people were not clear in their mind what the post of governor was. In fact, some were even asking me, and people went to school, that this job, why can't it just be nominated, be appointed? But right now, once you give people power and they taste it, they will not let it go. So I can tell you in Bomet, what is going to come in Bomet is people will speak. And they're going to speak in a very loud voice.
how likely are they going to lean?
Yeah.
According to your crystal ball, what do you see?
Well, I think from I know both because I worked with them. But I do agree with the Professor Analysis and my other colleagues that, Ruto, having been a politician, having been a member of parliament twice, he came to parliament and then lost, then remerged, then this time became governor. He is a man who is now used to power. He knows it. And when he talks, when he walks, when he acts, even when he sleeps politically. So, so I would like to say that Ruto has to be watched because people are now becoming more centrifugal-minded in their counties. And any outside player, it doesn't matter how powerful you are, you must be very sensitive to local interest. And this is what is going to disappoint a lot of the so-called bosses. Because people are going centrifugal. If you come to discuss matters of Bomet and you're for Bomet, you must treat very carefully. Because if you don't, then the people will see you as trying to interfere with their independence. That's the reality right now. But I can see many politicians, they still speak as if their word is alpha and omega. That era is gone.
Sorry, I equate this to, political sibling rivalry. Isaac Ruto, the Bomet governor, politically he's more mature, he's more experienced than the Deputy President William Ruto. Actually, William Ruto found them in this game. He has been a cabinet minister, he has been a member of parliament, he has been a powerful person in this country. What they have failed to understand is how William Ruto managed to maneuver his way to the helm of this country by becoming the deputy president. That is a reality that has never sunk in Isaac Ruto. It is a reality that may perhaps never sunk in the mind of Gideon Moi. So these are two protagonists, I would say now three, because you bring Gideon Moi into the scenario, that they do not really understand how William Ruto, or the one they know from those many days in the Kanu youth or something. So they haven't really internalized how he managed to push his way through to become the deputy president. So with the experience that Isaac Ruto has, you saw what he did. I mean, a tear gas can lands on your checks, you take the next flight to South Africa, and you come back in such a big way, a pompous welcome. That means you want to milk the political dividends that come out with all this. And you can see the ground has totally now shifted.
Let's take a phone call. Perhaps someone has a crystal ball out there on how this is going. Kevin, good morning.
Good morning.
What is your contribution this morning, Kevin? What do you want to talk about?
Well, thank you very much. I've been hearing about the discussion and watching it live, and I'm very grateful. Of first concern is this, Mr. Stewart. Well, Raila Odinga's visit to Isaac Ruto must it just be seen in a political way. Can we look at it in another way, as in if we look at it as if he went to see if really Isaac Ruto has fully recovered or his progress with the kind of accident he got? Why must we really just look at it in terms of politics? And then maybe lastly, what does Isaac, just in case Isaac Ruto decides to join the NASA coalition, what does it show just in case he decides to go for a bigger share than the gubernatorial race? What does it show to the NASA coalition, and how does it affect really the NASA coalition? Thank you very much. Kevin Okech from Nairobi.
All right. Thank you. Yeah, there's fundamental questions there, right?
Yeah, no, but
well, if Isaac Ruto is such a powerful player, right, and he gets into this NASA, why can't he go for the deputy president and that sort of thing? Why would he just be, remain as a governor? And what is his contribution into NASA and the whole big political schemes?
I think that is a very good question, actually, to start with. One way to answer it would be, as I said earlier, this NASA thing is still emerging. In other words, when you see Isaac Ruto actively engaged with people like Raila, you could see him actively engaged with Mudavadi, actively engaged with probably other parties. It might go in that direction. But really, the contribution I wanted to make is about the deputy president. When Molo said the Bomet people or people elsewhere will be trying to solve their own problems and they're likely to reject external efforts. Now, one thing you must give to William Ruto, he is able to convert an adversity into an opportunity. Until the others learn to do that effectively, Like, for example, for nth time, everybody has blamed Ruto for just about everything around the country. All right? Some of them real, others imagined, others unknown.
It just looks like a good guy to stick matope on.
It just looks like like a guy who you must take. But what I would like to refer to is what Mokwa said earlier. There is a need to reread, to reconfigure the way we look at political scenarios. This particular one, as far as I'm concerned, the Isaac Ruto game has not changed from the traditional approach. A change is required for him to become really relevant because he's used the same equation again and again and again. I do not see him growing bigger than that unless he undertakes a shift.
All right. Okay, so let's shift gears. We've spoken about this before, and it's about the presidency trip in Mount Kenya. 2 days of constant one topic, okay? One Raila Odinga. Why this man is a political propagandist, why he's not giving them time to run government, and in fact that is terrible and bad for the economy. That is the message that people of Central want in this trip.
Well, firstly, Uhuru Kenyatta in the recent past has had a lot of issues surrounding his governance. One fundamental one that is coming out clearly is that he has failed flat to address issues of corruption. And he has actually thrown his hands in the air during a summit in State House, during the anti-corruption summit, and said his hands are tied, he can't do as much, and therefore passed the buck to various sectors within the anti-corruption war. So this is a guy who has really said, I do not have what it takes, the wherewithal, to address issues of corruption. Suffice to say, and that is going to be a very key element in the next elections. And as my brother said, it will be a harsh indictment on the war against corruption at the ballot. Besides that, I mean, we have seen people demonstrating in Central Province that their issues are not being addressed. Life has become more difficult. Prices of essential commodities are skyrocketing each day. And therefore, they did not really imagine that a person at the helm, somebody who sits at the most coveted office in the land, a person from their own region could subject them to that kind of suffering. 3 weeks ago, you saw the Taxis Association in Kenya going to ODM House to be addressed by one Raila Odinga. 95% of the composition of those drivers are people from Central Province. And they are saying that this time around, we've been lied to for way too long. We are going to give Raila Odinga our support. You don't really expect Uhuru Kenyatta to sit pretty and look at this amount of revolt coming his way. He has to do something. And, you know, that really helps the opposition. They really need to milk this kind of advantage, that as they push Uhuru Kenyatta back to his periphery, they need now to venture into other areas that are perceived to have been solidly behind Jubilee coalition. And, you know, South Rift is one of those key areas. You look at what has happened in Bomet, what is happening in Narok, what is happening in Baringo and many other areas. What they should do as the opposition, as Uhuru Kenyatta cries foul going back home, is to try to hive off part of the Jubilee's ardent areas to their advantage. Because once they can tinker with the traditional Jubilee strongholds, then I think the game is almost over.
But this has worked well in the past. When Raila Odinga is the question on the ballot, then Raila Odinga loses, okay? Because that has worked. It worked well in 2013, worked well in 2007. It's worked very well. There's precedence in history. 2 months ago, opposition leaders have been telling Raila to retire or, hand it to them for the same reason, that if you put Raila Odinga as the main thrust of the conversation, then it's easy for him to lose. All right, it will be an anti-Raila vote. It's worked before, so there's precedent in this. Well,
you recall the late Omala Kijana said, if you Google Raila phobia, there are people from Central Province have got an irrational fear for Raila Odinga. There are, as we sit today, if you have a Raila Odinga and Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta, then for the first time Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta can go to Seychelles for a 3-week vacation and leave Ruto to do the campaign, and when he comes back, he's going to win. And that's how NASA comes in, because NASA, they've now realized that if you get somebody outside Raila Odinga to run as a presidential candidate from NASA or from CORD. So if you're looking at, say, Musalia Mudavadi, Kalonzo, or Wetangula, the people in Central Province have no reason to fear, say, Musalia Mudavadi as a presidential candidate. In fact, there'll be no incentive to go and vote. But people from the other CORD areas will wake up early in the morning to go and vote. So the big question would be...
It's a big theory.
Yeah, no, but it's actually been tested.
Where?
It's scientific.
When?
I mean, you look at the elections, that's the most scientific opinion.
Well, the last election, Raila got 5.3 votes. There's no one else who got anywhere close to 1 million. So that's theory.
But you see, we have to go with the results that are validated by the Supreme Court because we don't have the competent authorities to tell us.
True. But true, who else got more votes? And Raila Odinga and Uhuru Kenyatta.
But you see, the person who won, or the person whose win was validated by the Supreme Court is Uhuru Kenyatta, who is the president today. So the reason why actually President Kenyatta is very nervous today, it's not about Raila Odinga. When Uhuru hears the mention of NASA, he starts having a running stomach. When Ruto gets to hear that there is NASA coming up, he gets to have a running stomach. That's why you've seen the deputy president has made so many trips to Western Kenya in the last couple of days and, discussing NASA every single day. And even trying to behave in a manner suggesting that Kenya is actually in a parliamentary system. Because when he's telling people that next time when you're going to form a government, you must be part and parcel of it, the deputy president forgets that we are in a presidential system, that everybody is in government. When he goes to Bungoma and he says, I want you to be part of government, he forgets that Senator Moses Wetangula, who is the minority leader in the Senate, drives around in a GK vehicle. When he goes to Cumberland, complaining that we need to bring you in government, he forgets that Nyenze, who is the minority leader in the National Assembly, drives around in a GK vehicle. So this fallacy of telling people that we want you to come to government has been occasioned by that rising NASA star. And if these gentlemen who are well known to the CORD players and NASA players, if they wanted to kick Jubilee out of the political space today, is to go and anoint maybe Musalia, Kalonzo, or Wetangula and ask Raila to be really a kingmaker. Because if you go Raila in the tickets, then President Kenyatta is a very happy man.
Incidentally, I want to look at that issue from a different perspective. One of the major challenges of the opposition is to unify Western Kenya, what used to be Western Province. If one can be able to raise the number of registered voters and the turnout to 85% while retaining the previous one, you don't need NASA. You don't need NASA. Because then you will put together enough numbers. I have sat down, I have done an ethnic combination. I've said, if you put...
The new tyranny of numbers.
These alternative, the new tyranny of numbers.
Yes.
Then you don't need NASA. The reason, in my opinion, the real lock, the real puzzle for the opposition is Western Kenya. As long as Western Kenya remains significantly fragmented.
And this is where the problem of just, the NASA thing is.
Yes,
because
yes.
The leader who comes from Western is unable to rise beyond his village.
Yes.
So he's in deep problems.
You see, actually, just to finish, I personally think that is where Mudavadi himself is the problem, rather than the solution. He's the problem. Because he retains a group that is unwilling, all right, to play second fiddle to the other subgroups in the Luhya community. Now, that group wants to obtain primacy. It wants their candidate to be...
And the other Luhyas revolt.
And
so they vote the other side.
So,
and leave him
that's
hanging.
really where the problem is.
Yes.
Let me, just before my brother comes in, let me disabuse this notion that, when Raila Odinga's name is in the ballot, then he's bound to fail. I mean, that has been the notion going around, being peddled by political opponents. When a system conspires against a candidate, that is criminal. And that ought to be charged in a court of law, and the conspirators should face a full sentence in a credible court. So if IBC, for instance, comes out through its chairman and says that, we are used to these noisemakers, those who are perennial losers, they will always complain. That is treasonable. These people ought to offer, and IBC stands for Independent Electoral and Boundaries Committee, independence, so that they do not seem to be aligned to one political affiliation. So we need to have a credible electoral process that at the end of the day, whoever loses, loses fairly, loses with credibility, releases results that are verifiable, and one can actually shake the hands of the opponent and congratulate him or her for having won the election. So we are not going to use the conspiracies and the conspirators around Raila Odinga's win, those who've suppressed his win and subjected him to turmoil and frustration, and say that once his name is in the ballot, he will never win. That is why he's saying that we need a credible body before the next election.
Let me bring Omola here, because the conspiracy theorists just don't only belong to Jubilee, but also belong in the opposition, who would say, you know what, you need to retire so that you give us that post. I'll take my 300,000, give me your 5 million.
That sounds like a deal.
There is something in law where they say that, sometimes the court will find you guilty because you look guilty. And there's a very wrong way of applying. Yeah, you're guilty because you look guilty. Not because you're guilty, but you look guilty, so you're guilty. I don't think that's the right way of running this country. I share my brother Kelo's views, but my take is this. Let us not force people to take stands that they don't want to take. Like, for example, let's not look so desperate to replace Jubilee government, quite frankly. Because, like, if you look at the lawyer vote in 1963, Oluyaland was almost Kadu. But Maragoli that time, Tiende, who became Minister for Education, who was in Kanu. Bosia went to Kanu. And that's how Chisogo came in and Ochwada. Now, in the first multi-party election of 1992, the whole of Bungoma was for Kenya. The rest of Western Province went to Kanu. The same thing was repeated in Fort Kenya took Western Kenya. Then there was further Sili, parts of Kakamega. And in 1997, that was a repeat. 1992, where now NAC came to power. 202. 202 again, I think almost the whole of Western Kenya went to the opposition. But if you remember your history very well, Okemo came on, Kanu ticket. So Luyaland never went to opposition, the whole of them. I mean, the whole lot.
It's a swing vote.
The same thing was repeated in 2007. They didn't all come on board. Somebody like Halwale was in PNU. So really, lawyers have not really voted together. I mean, let's not waste time on that. They've got a right to take the stand they take, and I don't think we should mourn over that. In any case, for me, I really want to avoid this issue of ethnic. But I think we must take our arguments to the people so that we can win election. And that's why, for example, like if you also take Central Province, 1992, Muto came in Fort Kenya. 1997, Nyanja came on LDP. And 2007, Bishop Margaret was in ODM. So I think let us take our arguments to the voters and convince the voters.
Okay.
This issue of Raila not being unable to win, I think it is very unfortunate. Because it's like saying that if, for example, injustice is done to Raila, that's okay. If the country can move with injustice to Raila, it's okay. And let's not get that kind of argument. Let Raila be voted out because Kenya don't want him to be voted in. But let's also say that if you put Raila there, there will be so much injustice happening to him that we shall not access.
So let's give him the first place. Let me get a phone call from Samson. Samson, good morning.
Habari yako?
Salama. What's your contribution?
Naitwa Samson Madudu Manti kutoka Embakazi.
Yes.
Nafikiri naangalia naongea. Kuna mzee ameongea pale amesema iwapo kuhusu upande wa opposition, shida ile kwa opposition, iwapo mkoa wa Magharibi utaungana na uteue mtu mmoja atafanya vizuri. Kile nataka kuambia ni kwamba mkoa wa Magharibi ndio unaleta hizi shida zote. Mkoa wa Magharibi ukiteresa kidogo, nina hakika Uhuru anarudi. Lakini mkoa wa Magharibi ukiwa tu pamoja na uungwe mkono, Raila asiwe nje, awe ndani. Lakini ateue mtu mwingine yule atasimama kutoka mkoa wa Magharibi, mbali asiwe Wetangula. Nafikiri Wetangula ako na nguvu kidogo chini kuliko Mudavadi. Wateue Mudavadi na wengine wamuunge mkono. Nina hakika hizo kura zitapigwa kwa kapu kimoja. Lakini iwapo Raila atasimama anaelewa kweli siasa. Mkoa wa Magharibi ni must, tutapika mara 4 mara 5. Mimi natoka mkoa wa Magharibi. Nilasema tu tutapika kwa Jubilee, tutapika huko. Lakini iwapo Mudavadi atasimama peke yake na aungwe mkono na Wetangula aseme niko nyuma ya ndugu yangu, na Raila akuja amuunge mkono na hao wengine, ni hakika hii kitu inachukuliwa saa 4 kamili. Lakini hata mfanye nini, hata mteue Raila aenda ungane na Bomet, kina NASA wote Mudavadi aunge mkono hiyo ni kazi bure. Vile huyo mzee amesema tu mkoa wa Magharibi shida yote opposition inaletwa na mkoa wa Magharibi. Mkoa wa Magharibi usimame tu pamoja.
Samson is making another point, and this is the slippery slope that NASA is on, yeah, and everyone else. But you see, what we need to do is we need, Mudavadi as the candidate, and then everyone else to support it. Samson is saying, in fact, that is wrong. If you put Mudavadi as the candidate, we've lost it. Yeah. We need Otangola as the candidate so that Musalia can support him, and then Raila supports him. See, everyone comes and makes these claims, and we get to the point of why can't an argument be made to the people of this country about the issues that are facing them today, the issue of corruption, and how do we fight it? As opposed to who's the best among the five of us to be at the top of the seat and that sort of thing.
Actually, I think the bottom line is that all the candidates, whether you want to run for MCA or you want to become president of Kenya, you need to develop that very powerful, persuasive message. Go to the people and sell that message. When you've accumulated so much political capital, then you can come back to Raila Odinga and say that you've seen in the last couple of weeks, this is what I've been able to do. I've got this political capital and I need you to support me. The reason why Donald Trump was able to win is he understood the voter, he understood the worries and fears of the Americans, as it were, and he came up with a powerful message and is about to be sworn in as a president. So it's incumbent on Musalia Mudavadi, Wetangula, Kalonzo, if Professor Tumbo wants to run as a president, to really understand what are the issues affecting Kenya and give us a solution. And now that's the challenge that President Kenyatta is going to face, because right now there is a trust deficit. When President Kenyatta goes in public and he says, the problem we have in Kenya is Raila Odinga, then we begin to wonder, can we really trust you? Actually, the Central Kenya tour, the visit made by the president, for somebody who doesn't understand Kenyan politics very well, who is going to Google for the first time, they would actually imagine that the president of the Republic of Kenya is Raila Odinga and Kenyatta is the opposition leader. So we really need to get these presidential candidates and calibrate the messages.
Okay. Let's get Adhiambo. Adhiambo, good morning. Morning?
Morning.
Yes.
Yes, I want to contribute.
What's your contribution?
Towards this healthy debate.
I think I have a problem with that line, but anyway, it's not very clear.
Good morning.
Yes.
Yes, I want to contribute to this healthy debate.
Yes, what's your contribution, sir?
Yes, I'm saying that concerning the election of 2017,
I'm afraid I think we have a problem with that line. Yeah, so just call again. We have a problem with that line. Let's make the...
Well, what I'm saying is that, at the moment, CORD is carrying out what we would call internal introspection. It will also be reaching out to those under the auspices of NASA or whatever name that will be coined for it. And one of the things that they are seriously considering is the kind of ticket that they would want to have. If they have a Raila Odinga, Kalonzo Musyoka ticket, what are the chances? If they have Kalonzo, Raila, Wetangula. So all these things are under the purview of the CORD coalition at this moment. It is too early in the day also for an opposition to come up with a candidate at this time. Look at what has happened in Gambia, and he alluded to it. The guy actually formed a coalition 1 month to the next election, and he won that election. Uhuru Kenyatta, for instance, 6 months before the last elections, he was not even a candidate because the devil was lying to him that he couldn't win. Until the devil left him and he,
went independent.
Yes, Mademoni, the Mademoni theory. So we still have 10 months to the next elections. We still have an adequate amount of time. But I know if NASA or CORD would arrive at a candidate now and make it public, remember that Jubilee government has amassed so much wealth clandestinely. They will go after that candidate and they will shatter that candidate into pieces. So it is good that, we are still kept in abeyance. We are still kept weighing our options until the definite time.
Okay. Just before Prof makes a point, we would like to shift it and connect to the conversation that has been happening as well this week as we finish this. And listen to the majority leader, Eden Duale, when he made a point last week about governors spending money and Raila Odinga's connection and his duplicity on the fight against corruption. Listen to this.
So, Bwana Raila, tunakwambia wewe ujipange, tumekupata sasa. We have found you. Wewe ulitembea nchi hii, we have now cornered you. And we will tell Kenyans that you are a double standard fella. You are a hypocrite. What you are telling people is not what you are made of. Mzee wetu Raila Odinga anasema ufisadi, ufisadi, asubuhi na mchana na jioni. Kumbe yeye ndio anakula pesa ya ugatuzi. Yeye alikula pesa ya ugatuzi ya Mombasa, ya Siaya, ya Kisumu, ya Turkana, ya Kilifi, ya Nairobi. Na tuko na ushahidi. Akipanda ndege kwenda Mombasa, analibiwa na Joho. Tuko na ushahidi. Akilala hoteli analipiwa na pesa ya wananchi ya ufisadi. Akitaka kuwa na mkutano kama hii, pesa ya ugatuzi ya wamama na ya mashamba na ya barabara anaivuja. He is the biggest beneficiary of corruption going on in the counties dominated by ODM, and we have evidence to that effect.
Well, and that is the counter-argument for corruption.
Yes. I think, as I said, I think when I was with Professor, if you want to fight corruption, and it has happened in every country, you must depoliticize it. I would like to respect my friend Duale, being what he is. But if you are going to give that kind of evidence in a public platform, that evidence should be taken to court. So if you want to play politics with corruption, then we are also saying to no mkono, to meshindwa. I think corruption is a very serious case. Let's avoid the politics of those kind of talk, especially coming from someone like Duale. But if there's evidence, it should be made public in a court of law, not in a public platform. That is
that is a very sensational claim coming from a leader in the character of Duale. Of course, it is true that we have, as CORD coalition, CORD has made it very difficult for Jubilee to move out of Nairobi because of corruption allegations leveled against them, some of which have been confirmed beyond doubt. You talk of Eurobond, talk of NYS, you talk of others that are still pending in court that may not form part of this discussion. But because CORD has effectively pushed Jubilee to the defensive corner, and they have not been able to come out of it. Now they're trying to make certain accusations against CORD to divert the attention of the masses or the Kenyan populace to the advantage of Jubilee. And when a person of Duale's character goes out publicly to prosecute matters of corruption in a public arena, I mean, it's really, really absurd. What he needs to do is, it is Jubilee government that controls instruments of power. It is Jubilee government that oversights, EACC, DPP. Why is he finding it very difficult to present the evidence that he's talking about before them? And this is also very important. He talks about Raila Odinga seeking favors from governors to travel between Nairobi and Mombasa. It is only 13,000 shillings to fly to Mombasa. Raila may not have it. As one of his ardent supporters, I may have it. I can pay for him without necessarily going through Joe.
Go to Soho.
Yeah, actually, for me, I find Duale's claims juvenile, absolutely juvenile. The reason being, he's trying to take an advantage of an informed public to think that what he's claiming is real. Now, even if it was real, it should have gone the direction my colleague has stated. What really upsets me, it is the same Duale who was saying, don't touch Waiguru. He's talking about double standards. The same Duale was saying, don't touch Waiguru. She's clean, she's successful, she's all these things. Now, if you're talking about our public service, our politicians, that is duplicity that runs through the whole system. What I would like to see is very simple. I would like the citizen, for the time being, to begin listening to the people the politicians don't want to be listened to. The ones who are saying things the politicians dismiss in public. And that's really, for example, if you want us to believe Duale, all right, let them file suits against the governors who have facilitated Raila Odinga.
Yeah.
Now, by the same time also, the problem we are having right now, we may sound like we are obsessed with Raila Odinga. The point is, he's been able to raise points which Jubilee cannot delete, cannot rebut successfully. Now, let these guys also raise the issues so that we hold Raila Odinga accountable for them. We would like them to be raised credibly. As far as I'm concerned, for me, I want to hold everybody, whether it's Raila Odinga and his brigade, Musalia Mudavadi and his brigade. For me, the Uhuru brigade doesn't have it, doesn't see it, doesn't hear it. They are simply sitting in positions, but they are not earning their keep.
So allow me to make 3 points. Number one, when there was a terrorist attack not long ago, Honorable Ndwale said he had a list of suspects that he was going to present it to the investigative agencies. I don't know whether he did that. Right now he claims that he's got WhatsApp messages that Raila Odinga gets is a beneficiary of devolution resources. Now, instead of addressing poor Wanjiko who is yawning away because they've not had a meal, why can't he give that information to the Anti-Corruption Commission? And something interesting happened in the National Assembly a few days ago when the issues of corruption were heated up. And when he made the contributions in the National Assembly, he seemed to behave in a manner suggesting that all of us have stolen. You've stolen this amount, I've stolen this amount. What is the big deal? So it seems to me that all the MPs have stolen. When you go through the newspapers today, the Sunday Standard, I saw his photo there, about 20 million, I think, thereabouts, money which has gone to fictitious projects. So one begins to wonder, does the political class, in this case represented by Adan Ndwale, think that they're so clever and the rest of the Kenyans so illiterate that we cannot see that they're actually engaged in mischief? Like, for instance, when you bring in the case of Joe, there were some observations by the Auditor General on the number of accounts that are being run in the county. And Joe came out in public and explained that everything is order. And the Auditor General's feedback was that these are issues we raised, and you've sorted them out. And in fact, Joe has won an award from the CRA about revenue collection. And if somebody has got evidence that a governor or anybody has stolen a cow, why go to a funeral? Why go to a public baraza? Why can't you give this information to Ndegwa Muhoro or to the Anti-Corruption Commission and have these guys prosecuted?
Or institute a private proceeding.
Yeah, do that.
Let's take this home. Let me start with you. Make your final point on where from what discussed today.
My final point is this. I think we have failed to use the institutions set by the Constitution in this country. And that's why, for example, when you find people lamenting, there is the, like you said, there is the anti-corruption body, there is the CID. And these institutions have been already using them. We said we like to have confidence in public, even when they come from government. So I think let's have more commitment to making institutions work. These institutions were set up to manage this country. But if you want to manage the country through public platforms, through public rallies, we are missing it. It's really when you're in government. So my appeal is, let us respect the constitutionality of this country by using the institutions set by the Constitution to govern this country.
Actually, the contribution I want to make is slightly different. We need to manage tribalism better. Tribalism in this country needs to be better managed. The reason being, you can refuse to be a Kenyan by refusing to get a Kenyan ID. But you cannot refuse to be a Kisii, a Kikuyu, a Luo. So these are things we must live with. So all we need to do at this point is to begin appealing to that person, whatever language they speak, that even if you are a Luo, even if you are a Mukamba, you need to hold the people who speak your language to account. If we don't manage tribalism better, we are not going to get anywhere.
We can't get anywhere. All right?
Well, the president of the country has said categorically that Raila Odinga makes it very difficult for him to govern. Then I can only say that he's in a wrong office. The work of the opposition, apart from holding the government to account, has to position itself as an alternative government. And if he's failing on his duties and the opposition is seen in the public glare as the best alternative, I mean, then Raila Odinga is achieving his mandate. But it is not Raila Odinga's business to praise Uhuru Kenyatta from morning to evening. Then he would not be a candidate worth talking about. Uhuru Kenyatta must come out strongly and address issues of corruption. He has the instruments of power to balance the tribal arithmetic in government. 65% of jobs held by 2 communities out of 42 different communities is a harsh indictment on his government.
Okay.
So we hope that things will stabilize as we go along, or as we wait for his exit on the 8th of August 2017.
One of the 48 rules of power, actually rule number 4, says that you're not supposed to speak so much. And maybe that's a rule that the president and his deputy need to socialize with. Because when you have a head of state and the deputy spending 3 days throwing insults at Raila Odinga, that's really unacceptable. And this goes to now Musalia Mudavadi and Wetangula and Kalonzo, as well as Raila. If they want to present a candidate on CORD, let them make it work. If they want to get a candidate from NASA, let them identify someone. Because in as much as we keep on blaming President Kenyatta today, it's probably he sees a disintegrated opposition that will be unable to kick him out of office.
Right.
So let's get somebody, a strong candidate, who can put fire on President Kenyatta's feet, so that at the end of the day, when Jiku becomes the principal beneficiary.
Thank you very much, panel. Thank you very much for your time. Rule number 4, don't talk too much. I think you already talked. That does it for us here on Sunday edition. Do have a lovely afternoon.